recorded a video about telling you what happens inside a coaching session. And I think made the recording. I think I was sort of 10 minutes in, and I realized that I'm actually struggling to share that mainly because I have never actually sat in someone else's coaching session. I have been on mine where I'm the one that is coaching other people and where I am coached myself. And I know for a fact that each coaching session, each client is different. And therefore, in as much as there is some form of a blueprint, some form of a template, every coaching session is different because every client is unique. What I always say to my clients, anyone who books with me, is that I have what I call one size fits one. But because a lot of people have never been to coaches, a lot of people have never been to counseling, a lot of people have never been to therapy, at least from what I know, I just felt maybe let me give you some form of framework, some form of template, especially if you are considering 2026 to be your year where you have a coach, just to give you a glimpse of what to expect. It is not what a lot of people think it is. Let me talk about the misconceptions of what people think it is, and these misconceptions come from some of the DMs that I get, or sometimes when I'm having a conversation with someone, they would then mention some of these things, and some of my friends who've never been to coaching. So it is not a place where wounds are opened or deep dark secrets are dug out, or it is all guts and bloody. It is not always like that. In fact, for you or for a client to get to that level where there is really, really deep stuff that is unearthed, it's usually a client that has been with you for a while. I always say that it 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 takes a lot of trust and a lot of vulnerability and a lot of truth between the client and the coach for someone to really dig deep and just reveal deep wounds. It also takes a very good coach to get a client to do that. Sometimes, and a lot of coaches, when if they're honest with us, they will tell you that you would have coaching sessions, 8 to 10 sessions with a client who's just simply not opening up. I know for a fact that with therapy, especially clinical therapy, because I get a lot of clients from clinical therapy, a lot of my clients have been to some form of therapy or some counseling. And half the time, let's say by 4 or 5 session, a client would then say that, I've been to therapy. Yes, they've touched on this and this, they've touched on childhood issues, but I've never gotten to this level where I'm sharing this much, or I'm revealing this much, or I am opening up this much, or I am remembering this many things. Your exercises or your journal prompting are pushing me to that level. And to be fair to therapists, we don't operate the same. Therapists are under some regulation, and there are some code of conduct. For an example, a therapist does not have to, or a therapist does not actually, is not supposed to share some of their personal stuff. Whereas with coaching and life coaching, especially if you've developed a deep, deep rapport, we do tend to share certain personal things, especially if it's going to help the client, if it's going to help you move the needle a little bit or see something differently. I do tend to share very personal examples of certain things. For an example, if a client is dealing with an obstacle that I have overcome, or something that I know very well, or something that a different client has gone through, I do share such things. And like, okay, for an example, this and this and this happened. How do you then see your situation right now? So maybe let me then take you through their process, what you should expect. And once again, it may not necessarily go that way, because of why clients are different, situations are different, coaching is different, it is unique. And also, there is a concept called the map is not the territory. Just because I have a template of how coaching is structured, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen like that. Session one ideally goes this way and that way and that way. It doesn't mean that with you it's going to happen like that. Session two has its own energy, session three has its own energy. So yes, it is very, very rare for, yeah, I've just decided to put my glasses. My guys, my eyes do struggle. It is very, very rare for a new client, especially the first 3 sessions, to go into the deep dive. But having said that, I have had, and I know of coaches, especially old coaches who've been doing this work for a while, like myself, where even before a hello, even before a how's your day to a new client, then we are already in Tearsville. we are already crying. And I know that, okay, this person does immediately feel safe with me to be open like that, to be vulnerable like that. Perhaps my energy brings some form of comfort. They know that they are at a place of safety. So that, yes, does happen. And when that happens, it then changes the entire trajectory of how the session starts. Because what I like to do, and I know many coaches like to do that, is we want to meet you where you are. We want to start you where you are. If at opening, at hello, how are you today? How are you feeling today? And there's tears, and I'm seeing you for the first time, that's where I start. I will obviously start with the basic question that, okay, so what are the tears for? What do you think? Why do you think you're crying? What is overwhelming you so much? And then a person will then unfold from there. Sometimes they say, I don't know, and then I will have other follow-up questions. And if they still don't know, then I will recalibrate and start the normal way. Do you see how difficult it is to share with a person what happens during a coaching session? But even with that, I'm just glad I laid that foundation. Even with that, there is a template and there is a way of starting a coaching session. And there are certain pointers as a client that you want to look for, that you need to expect from a coach. So let me go take you through those, and then I will add along the way some of how I handle certain things. So if this video is too long, we will always do what I normally do and split it into two, and then it will be two parts of the same kind of theme. So I'm going to just quickly look at my notes and then take it from there. So usually the first session is about establishing rapport, clarifying expectations, and exploring what the current situation of your life is. So you are the client, it's your first session, you are on Zoom or you're in person. Many times people are on Zoom. Very few people are coaching live, even if they're in the same town or in the same city, by the way. So a lot of coaching expect them to be on Zoom or some form of, or Teams, or anyway, basically over the internet, right? So the first session, usually it's just establishing rapport, clarifying some expectations, what do you expect out of this, and then understanding what brought you here. So that's what your coach is going to be asking you. Why are you here? Why did you respond to this call? And so on. And then depending on how long the session is, or depending on your answers, even still in session one, the coach would ask things like, you'd have to identify the broad goals and the desired outcomes. What is it that after session 8, especially coaches who give specific sessions, like maybe it's an 8 session. A coach will ask you things like, at the end of session 8, what would you like to have seen happen? What would make this coaching with me a success after what and what? And then you put out those desires or those expectations or those outcomes. So what the next thing that usually happens in session one, but sometimes it's in session two, they will show you a wheel, the wheel of life. I have put it here on screen, where, especially in life coaching, I'm talking in life coaching here. I'm not talking in a niche coaching. A niche coaching would be relationship coaching, dating coaching, money coaching, career coaching, executive coaching. I'm talking in life coaching. So you'll have that wheel of life where it shows your social life, relationship status, parenting, fitness, wellness. You know that wheel of life, which I have put somewhere here on the video. That usually shows up in session one, where your coach would ask you to rate yourself, let's say on fitness, on a scale of 1 to 10 or scale of 1 to 5, where your finances, blah, blah, blah. And then that becomes sort of like a map to work with the coach. Guys, just bear with me. I'm talking here about the most generic life coaches. I'm not talking about people like me who then delve into psychospirituality. So and usually a coaching like this works best for young people in their 20s, people in their 30s. From the moment people are in their 40s, 50s, the stuff gets deeper because, we are dealing with a different stage, different phase of life, which is sort of where I play. A lot of my clients are mid 30s, well, even early 30s to late 50s. I don't think I've ever had a client who's over 60, 50s, 40s. A lot of them are in their 30s. And from time to time, I'll have outliers. I'll have someone in their 20s. be my client, and they teach me so much because I love millennials and I love Gen Zs. But yeah, so that's generally session one, establishing rapport, exploring expectations or clarifying expectations, identifying broad goals and outcomes that you think you want after each session. And you would usually be shown that wheel of life as to where are you in this aspect of life. Okay, session two is usually a deep dive. In fact, any number two, the second session is harder. The second day of anything is harder. The second bonds are harder. Just jokes. So session two is usually the deep dive where we then get into your values, your beliefs, your patterns, so we explore what truly matters to a client. We also explore the cognitive dissonance, where this is who you say you are, but you don't move like that. The one hand is moving this way, but you're doing that. For an example, you want to purport yourself as someone who is honest and have integrity and this and this and that. But in reality, your life is not reflecting that. You are not honest in certain spaces or in a lot of time, and you are not showing integrity. And then we try and find the balance. Or as a client or as a coach, we will show you that dissonance and see what causes that. And, that's where the deep dive is. Okay, we identify your internal dialogues, your belief systems, what motivates you, what drives you, why you do the things that you do. And once again, this could happen in session 3 as well. It could happen in session 4. So while this is a template, it's not based on timelines. Session 1, you might end up talking about something really, really deeper, or you might end up spending a lot of time on one of those categories of the wheel of life. Do you see? And I'm trying my best to give you a picture of something that is not picturable, because you really just have to be in session for you to understand what happens in coaching. And what happens in your coaching session will be different to what happens in Sophie's coaching session. And coming to Lebupule for coaching will be completely different to if you've gone to a different coach. Because we are different, we are unique, we are human beings, we touch you differently, and so on. Okay, session 3, depending on how session 2 went, you'd find that it's a carryover of what happened in session 3. In session 2, there's some deep stuff that came out that you need to process. And usually this is where clients are feeling like, no, this healing thing seems like it's making things worse and not better. And there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of wanting to go back and forth. There's a lot of missing appointments or ducking. There's a lot of not doing homework. It happens, and we are used to it. I'm used to it. And there's a way that a coach brings you back in line. Usually when intense things are coming up and I can see that the client is struggling, I do slow it down. I do slow it all the way down. I focus on less triggering aspects of their life. If work is the trigger, I focus on them being a parent. And generally, you find that now that something has been triggered and blown open, every other part is blown open, which is why once you start with a life coach, please do not pull out, because it's like you've started something and then you left it like that. It's like you started spring cleaning or doing laundry, and now it's too much. And now the clothes are lying all over the living room or all over the bedroom. It's standing in your way. You are rattled. You need to follow through. You need to follow through. You need to do the sessions. You need to finish coaching sessions with your client, with your coach. If they said it's 12 sessions, let it be 12 sessions. Okay. So maybe let's continue with the next video on session 4, session 5, and session 6, so that this video is not too long. Now, next video.